Wisdom, how's it going, man?
Hey, going well. How are you?
Good to see you, man. I'm good. Tell
Of
us
course.
just a little bit about your background. Like what is it that you've been doing for many years,
Yeah.
and give some people some overview.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm a church guy. I've worked in church ministry for a long time. I'm actually still currently a part-time worship leader at my church in downtown Kansas City. And I've worked in a lot of different sectors, nonprofit, businesses. And I spent a lot of time in Nashville, worked at Centricity Music and Integrity Music, doing marketing. At Centricity, I helped launch the worship imprint there and got to
Yeah,
work with some incredible artists like Lauren Daigle. Integrity Music, I worked with artists like Pavlosh, Darling Check, All Sons and Daughters, and really both places I focused a lot of my efforts in really the worship resource brand that they had, and then also helping market new releases. And then 4 years ago, I started Christian music marketing to help people that are not signed to a label be able to release their music effectively. And then last year started Lula Records, which is our own record label that helps independent artists be able to keep their copyrights, like the ownership and creative control, and then also at the same time get support from a bigger label structure. So yeah, that's what I do.
that's pretty awesome, man. And I first met you, I think, right before you started working for Integrity. You were doing was it called All About Worship, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I owned
Allaboutworship.com. It was
all
like a
about
music.
worship.
So we met back then. That was a while ago. And
Yeah.
you're an expert though in this whole idea of like, yeah, releasing music, marketing music. You've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of the people who are listening to this, so many churches and worship leaders are wanting to write and record and release their own music. And so you guys offer a lot of services. I know that, and actually want you to share a little bit later about what services you guys offer at Christian Music Marketing
Sure.
and Lula. What would you say though is the biggest mistake that you see artists making when releasing new music? So if it's an independent artist and they're releasing an album, like what's the biggest like misstep you think you see people make?
I would say the biggest thing is when you have the recording done, whether you're hiring it out or whatever, and you have the final master in hand and you have no clue what you're doing after that. That's the biggest mistake.
Yeah.
And
And
I
you just
talked to a lot
upload
of
it to DistroKid and it's gone.
yeah, a lot of producer friends I talk to also, they have artists that like once they hand off the final masters, the artist literally is like, great, now what do I do? you know and there's no plan. So I think the biggest mistake is not having a plan for the music that you're recording before the recording is done.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of times artists will just distribute it through a place like DistroKid and then just throw it out there at a random day and
Yep.
hope for the best, and there's no strategy behind it.
Yep. That's so interesting. Yeah. So when you think about a release schedule, I know a lot of times, like when an album comes out, they release singles ahead of time, and sometimes I don't know what the exact word is for it, but like the singles are actually like pre-orders of the album, but other times they actually release singles as separate singles, and
Yeah.
then they put them all on the album. What do you think is like a good release schedule?
Yeah, it really depends on like your goals and what you need to achieve with the music. And we work with a lot of churches, and sometimes churches are, I think, more restricted in how they can release music and how creative they can get with it versus independent artists that we work with, or even smaller labels we work with. They're more flexible, is what I found. So a lot of churches, they have like certain things that they have to do that year. Like we have to put out an album,
Yeah.
and we have this budget and this time frame that we need to do it within. So I would say if you don't have those restrictions, really the approach that we recommend typically, let's say you have 10 songs you want to release in 2023,
Yeah.
is the strategy actually that you're referring to is called waterfalling. So When you do a waterfall strategy, that means you're releasing one song at a time. And typically we recommend, keeping them 4 to 6 weeks apart. And you're adding on the previous releases every time you release a new single. So your first single is going to just be by itself. Your second single the next month would
Yeah.
include that new single and the first single as well. And you just basically continue to add that, and you're kind of like building on, to the releases, kind of like almost like Lego blocks, and then by the time you get to the 10th release, if you did that, all 10 songs, that would take
Hmm.
pretty much like 10 months, which is the
Yeah.
whole year. And that's really the ideal time. And the ideal way to release 10 songs is to really offer it to the world like one song at a time, because
Hmm.
there's so many different benefits nowadays with doing it that way. So by the time you release the 10th song, you have all 10 songs on that release, which
Right.
makes it an album naturally. So there's just a lot of different reasons for doing it that way, and I'm happy to like answer any detailed questions about that.
Do you release them on the same album, or at the end of that, would you have probably like six different actually album art releases, or is it all just one album art and everything's inside of that one?
Yeah, so as far as the artwork goes, you can have like one main artwork for the album, and then maybe make some tiny tweaks, like the song title, or maybe the color scheme is a little different. Or you can get really creative and do something totally different with each release, artwork. So you can go about it in a couple of different ways. We have a church that we're working with that has a different artwork for each single, and then the album is actually like the combination of all the
Yeah.
previous releases cover art, so it kind of like
Yeah.
comes together. So I
So if
would
you did it,
say, you want to
yeah.
be, yeah, go ahead.
Well, if you did it that way, does that mean that when it's all said and done, it's possible that the same song is released twice? Because you've got one as the single that was released like 6 months earlier, and then another that
Yeah.
was released on the final album.
Yeah, so actually, if you do it like one song at a time and you have 10 songs, so the 10th month you're releasing the whole album, that first single essentially is releasing like 10 times,
Oh,
But yeah, you can go back and actually remove the other releases in the future if you wanted to keep it more
yeah,
clean on Spotify.
yeah,
But the key thing is you need to use the same ISRC code, which is
yeah.
like your distributor gives you that code. Your ISRC code for the song is kind of like your social security number. Each individual song has a different number, and then each release, like the
Yeah.
project, has a different code called a UPC code,
Hmm.
and that's different per project. So that's kind of like your home address, and then the ISRCs are your social security numbers.
That's super helpful. So that's the first I've actually ever heard of a waterfalling strategy, because I think if I'm gathering this correctly, what you're saying is then each release, say release number one is one song, release number two has two songs on it, it has the first song and the second song. Release number three has one,
Yep.
two, and three. Wow,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
Yeah,
All right.
and let's say like your first song got on a playlist, like
Yeah.
a independent playlist, and you want to make sure that that those numbers don't get lost, and your song still continues to be on that playlist. So, like, if you actually use the same ISRC code, that's where that comes really handy, and then it's
Mm,
really important. Because if you create a new ISRC code, then you are going to lose that placement on the
yeah.
playlist. So that's really important.
That's interesting. All right. So let's actually transition to talking about playlists. I think we all know that playlists are important, but in 2022, how important are they? What would you say? Like, is it like really, really
Yeah.
important? Is it the most important thing now at this point?
I would say the most important thing when you're releasing music is awareness,
Hmm.
because that's really the biggest challenge that anybody has, churches and artists releasing music. As we've all heard probably now, there's over 60,000 songs every single day being uploaded to Spotify.
Wow.
That's a lot of songs, and even if you said, okay, out of the whole week, 60,000 songs a day, let's say only 1,000 of them are Christian songs. that's still a lot of songs that you're trying
Yeah.
to get people's attention, and a thousand other Christian artists are trying to get people's attention, the same audience really. So that's where really it's all about awareness, and
Hmm.
you have to create awareness about your music. And playlisting is one way to do that, but it's not the only way. And it's not necessarily the most effective way. It kind of depends on the song and how good you are, even with, pitching to playlists. And then also, if you get on an editorial playlist, that can really change the game as far as like playlisting goes, because everybody looks at editorial playlists, like the independent, curators on Spotify. They look at New Music Friday Christian to see what songs they should add on their playlist. So if you can get on an editorial playlist, that can really help boost your streams and how many other playlists that you get on. But I would say like the past 2 to 3 years, things have really shifted with editorial playlists. Where if you look at the copyright line of the releases on that playlist or other editorial playlists, you're gonna find that most of them are actually released through a big distributor that pitches to editorial or
Mm.
labels,
Yeah.
or label services. Very few of them are 100% independent, like they're uploading to DistroKid. So
Yeah.
your chances of getting on an editorial playlist these days as just 100% independent artist is very slim.
Mm. So I guess the golden question is, so how do you get your music? How would an indie artist get their music on a playlist?
So editorial playlists, really, that's actually why we started Lula Street Records, because we saw this shift happening to, editorial playlists, especially to
Yeah.
really focus on, label releases and big distributor releases that they partner with. And so through Lula Street, we offer distribution, and which includes pitching to editorial. And so that's
Yeah.
one way, like you can partner with a distributor or like a label or label services company, where they pitch for you, and there's a little bit more attention to that.
Yeah.
Um, you'll like officially they're not going to tell you that. Like Spotify won't say that. None of the DSPs, the digital service providers, are going to actually say that publicly. But if you look at editorial playlists, you can kind of,
Yeah.
gather that that's what's happening. And
Yeah.
so I would say that's a big way that you can, increase your chances of editorial playlisting. If you want to pitch yourself outside of editorial to even like independent curators, like I have a pretty big playlist on Spotify, and people have tried to pitch things to me. You have to kind of almost take it as like a part-time job. I've, had artists that actually will dedicate like 10 hours a week to research curators on Spotify, because it's really
Yeah.
hard to find their information. I don't have my personal email or work email out there for people to pitch to. So you
Yeah.
have to do some digging, and you almost have to become like a digital stalker
Yeah.
to find
Yeah.
these curators' information. So you try to find their, some kind of contact information, whether it's like social media or
Yeah.
email or website. And then the biggest mistake with that, I think, is because I get these pitches all the time, is
Hmm.
you basically reach out to the curator and say, "Hey, I would love for you to check out this song and consider it for your playlist." And then that's like the whole message, and there's a link to it. The issue with that is that you're not the only one pitching to me. There's 100 other artists pitching their songs to me as well, and nobody has time to sift through all of that, because nobody outside of editorial, they're really not doing this as their part-time or full-time job. This is like a
Right.
hobby, like a side thing for them. And
Right.
so you have to know how to stand out when you're pitching to playlists. And I would say there's different ways to approach that, where hopefully like you can add value to the curator before you're even pitching to
Mm.
their playlist. So, for example, if you have 1,000 followers on Instagram, or maybe you have a pretty big
Yeah.
email list, I would recommend actually sharing that curator's playlist through your Instagram stories or your email list. and then contacting the curator and saying, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know I love your playlist. And I recently promoted it," and then send them like a link or a screenshot of it, and then follow it up with, I have a new song releasing this Friday, or I have a song that just released. If you have a chance, to check it
Mm.
out.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
goes a lot further than all you do is just pitch your song,
yeah,
and there's nothing in it for them because you're
yeah.
not a big artist that they recognize.
Would you say that press releases are important in today's world?
Press releases, I would say, serve a purpose. Just like, anything within your strategy can serve a purpose. Whether it's playlisting or running ads. You have to kind of determine, like, because any church or artist has limited resources, whether that's time.
Hmm.
So if press releases are a thing that you want to pursue that, but you don't have the budget, you have to learn how
Yeah.
to write a press release, and you have to find all these contacts that you can send it out to. So it's
Hmm.
costing you in time, or it's going to cost you in resources. So you're gonna hire that out and pay somebody else to write it, send it
Yeah.
out to their list. So you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons, and also weigh, like, what are your goals with the release.
Yeah.
The press releases that are really effective are ones that have a compelling story. So
Hmm.
let's we have a client, we're sending a press release out for, where they had we actually sent the press release out, I think, already, where, oh, actually, it's for the album that hasn't come out yet, and it's basically talking about how this one song was inspired by their, like, miscarriage, and not
Hmm.
able
Yeah.
to uh, get pregnant, and then just praying through
Yeah.
that, and that's a pretty compelling story. And then now, like, they actually have a baby.
Yeah.
And so, if you have a compelling story versus, like, if you're like, "Hey, me and a couple of people that love writing together wrote this song and we released it," then nobody
Hmm.
really is going to pay
Yeah.
attention because there's nothing compelling about it. So
Yeah.
if you have a compelling angle with your release, that's where press releases can help open some doors, whether it's like
Mm.
a feature on their website. And a press release essentially is letting media outlets know about your release. And within Christian music, those are different platforms that review music or promote
Yeah.
music in Christian music. So um, one way would be they're featuring your song, or they're reviewing your song, or maybe they have a podcast like this. They're wanting you to get on to get interviewed.
Mm.
So it serves a purpose. I think you have to just figure out, like, what are the things, because obviously if you say yes to a press release, you're going to have to say no to something else. And
Hmm.
what are your priorities?
Yeah. So I totally get the story thing because I even think about the Katie Nicole song, and that blew
Oh
up.
yeah,
She had a story really
yeah,
behind that song, "God of
oh yeah.
Possible." And speaking of Katie Nicole, I think goes to my next question of like, how important is video? Like, can an artist just release music without doing any sort of like? It seems like everybody's doing music videos now, but is that necessary? Do you have to do that?
Man, I would say if you have the time and resources, video content is really, really important.
Yeah,
But I totally understand that not everybody has that, and not everybody, wants to spend thousands of dollars creating a video.
yeah,
I would say this, because I've seen people try to do music videos and performance
yeah.
videos. I would say, and some people may disagree with me, I would say it's better not to release a video versus, like, releasing a video that sucks.
That's bad. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
If you release something on YouTube and the quality
yeah,
is really bad, or it's just super cheesy, it's going to actually hurt you more than help you.
yeah, yeah. That's a good word. And it's interesting because then you think about like, the Katie Nicole thing. She blew up on TikTok and it was just like her phone like sitting in the corner, but it was just her
Yeah.
sharing the song that she wrote. And I think that's a different type of video. It's not like she was making a
Yeah.
music video. She was more of just that was like a social media
Yeah.
post. And you probably would you say that TikTok is a good platform for right now for artists to be releasing their music on?
Yeah, I actually just did a video on this on TikTok and Instagram. I think TikTok is the number one platform right now for artists, and
Hmm.
you need to be on TikTok. I had some people contact me from the video, and they were like, "Well, what if I'm concerned about my privacy and whatever like privacy concerns that have come
Yeah.
up with TikTok?" What I tell them is, then don't go on TikTok. If you are concerned about,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
privacy policy, then
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think you should use TikTok. So it's
Yeah.
obviously you have to make that personal decision.
Yeah.
For me, I guess I don't really have concerns when it comes to
Yeah.
privacy on the social media platforms. I basically assume there's no privacy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my all of our information's everywhere. It's all out there. Like
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean,
It's
it's
just the way it
really hard
is.
to stop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really for me, I'm not concerned about that. I want to utilize the tools that are available that are
Yeah.
effective right
Yeah.
now, and TikTok is a really effective platform. I would say to just short form vertical videos are the best things to create right now. So
Yeah.
like a quick performance video in a garage or whatever.
Yeah.
I think you should get creative, not just copy somebody else's idea, but get
Yeah.
creative in how you present your music. And really, the key with short form videos is in the first 2 seconds, you have to hook the viewer.
Yeah.
So if you're taking 2 seconds to like get situated or like get talking on the video, you're going to lose most of the people that come across your video. So
Yeah.
that's why editing is really important. You have to just keep their attention and keep it interesting. Hook them in with something really compelling versus, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I'm an artist." You all already lost the person.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to introduce yourself and all that stuff in a short form video. Like
Yeah.
YouTube videos are different. Yeah, short form videos are really effective right now. That's TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. I would really focus on those.
Yeah. Get right to it. What about distribution platforms? You've got CD Baby, TuneCore. Is there like one that you really like for independent artists?
I always recommend DistroKid for like you know, just the typical artist that
Yeah.
doesn't maybe have a huge catalog. If you have a big catalog, there's some more exclusive distributors you can go out to and reach out to, and they'll have some more like bells and whistles or features, like they'll pitch
Yeah.
to DSPs and things like that. But if you're just kind of starting out and you don't have relationships in the industry, you don't have like a
Yeah.
catalog to show for, because essentially like a distro kit is fully automated,
Hmm.
so they can scale and take on as many artists as they want, whereas more of an exclusive like private distributor, they have to be very selective in who they take on, and typically it's a royalty share. So they're looking for artists that have some proven track record and they have some success on DSPs, and that's where like you could benefit from that relationship, but you also have to do the work to get to the point where they would actually be
Yeah.
interested.
Hmm.
So DistroKid is great because they don't take any percentage of your royalties, and there's a lot of great features that they offer that are included, and then also
Right.
you can do some add-ons if you want to like monetize things on YouTube and things like that. That can really help benefit you as an independent.
Yeah. I was actually recently looking at kind of the different distribution options, and I noticed that DistroKid charges like a yearly fee. They don't take a
Yeah.
cutoff of what they're gathering in royalties or whatever, but they charge you a yearly fee. Where someone like CD Baby is a one-time payment, but then they take a cut of all your future royalties.
It's a one-time payment. You're paying for every release. So if you did 10 singles next year, you're paying for every one of those releases. Whereas
Hmm.
just DistroKid is unlimited releases in a year.
Right. But then do you have to keep paying to keep it up, like
Yeah, so
for the next like
DistroKid, you
20
would have
years?
to keep paying every year.
Yeah.
I do think there's a feature that you pay one time where you you can basically like continue to have them collect your royalties for them even if you leave them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think it's good to just A B, compare like all
Yeah,
the
yeah,
options that are out there. I just personally have really liked the DistroKid like interface, and just what they offer is just pretty straightforward, one time fee,
yeah,
once a year fee, um, with no royalties, and it's unlimited releases. So
yeah.
it allows you to have like just a set, annual budget for it. I mean, you're talking like $35 a year. It's pretty.
Right,
I think that's about how much it is. So
right. So let's talk about recouping costs because it's not cheap to record music, at least to do it well. And back in the day, it used to be a lot easier to recoup costs because you could sell CDs, at $15 a piece, and the profit margin was pretty high on those. But now with streaming royalties, it's a little harder to make back that recoupment, if
yeah,
ever. Honestly, for an independent artist, you may
yeah.
never make back the $10,000 plus maybe you spent on a project.
Yeah,
Do you have any tips
I would
on
say,
how to be recouping costs as an independent artist?
yeah, even for signed artists, it's really hard too, because when you sign to a label, more of a traditional model label, you're
Yeah,
basically taking an advance. You get paid in advance, but the label is recouping that advance through your, revenue,
right,
your income. So
right.
I know I have plenty of artist friends that were signed to labels that are still recouping on all their
Wow.
expenses,
Yeah,
because a label also, not they don't just charge for your like production that they paid for. They're charging for marketing, they're charging if they did any radio promotions, they're charging for that. They'll charge you for advertising costs. If you have a business meal with them, you're
yeah,
paying for that. There's a lot of
yeah,
expenses that the artist is recouping, and it's a lot. It probably takes a lot longer for somebody that was signed to recoup those costs versus like an independent artist to recoup their costs because
yeah,
of that reason. So for an independent artist, I would really shift your thinking when it comes to streaming platforms. So typically, like we think about Spotify, Apple Music, these places as like, oh, I can make money from my music from people streaming my
yeah,
music. I actually look at it differently. I look at it as a discovery platform and opportunity versus a revenue opportunity for most independent artists. You're not really going to see a ton of money come through streaming,
mm,
but like the discoverability of these platforms, what they offer. I mean, we've never had anything like this in the history of music,
yeah,
because I mean, you had to be signed to a label, and they had to distribute through bookstores, and people had to like physically go to a bookstore, buy a CD.
hmm,
Now, like any of us can go on DistroKid, sign up, and release music. I mean, you could release music every day of the year if you wanted to,
right,
and
right,
it makes it so easy. And really, that's why like there's a lot of negative talk about these platforms like Spotify, but when you think about it as like, man, they're giving you a tool, like a software,
marketing.
where you
Yeah,
can make your music available worldwide at
yeah,
the tip of like a couple of mouse
everybody's
clicks,
phone.
and you can have your music on Spotify. Like, it's crazy that you have
Yeah,
that opportunity. So I
yeah,
would look at it as like, this is a great discovery platform, not
yeah,
revenue generating platform. I think, yeah, you'll get streams if you're smart about your releases and your marketing. You can recoup stuff through streaming, but also for maybe people that have a hard time getting streams and getting playlisted, you want to look at, okay, how do I take the people that are discovering my music on these platforms and really convert them and like take them on this journey to become more of like the passionate fans, is what we call
mm,
them. So you take them from streaming your music to how do you encourage them to buy your merch or book you for a show and things like that.
yeah,
I think there's got to be other ways that you generate income and not rely just on streaming royalties.
yeah,
And so when you think about worship songs specifically, there's CCLI revenue that could be pretty significant for artists and churches. So that's a potential stream of income for the artist or the church, but that could take 3-4 years of
Yeah.
you really investing into those songs and promoting the songs. So none of it, I would say, is really like when you think about longevity as an artist or a church
Yeah.
releasing music, none of it is short term. Everything is long term. You have to look at it
Mm.
long term. You have to think about it as like, how do I create awareness long term? How do
Yeah.
I create trust with people? So when it comes down to, like, man, how do some of these like, movements or churches release something on Friday and people are literally playing their songs on Sunday at church? How does that happen? It's because they've built the trust and credibility with
Mm.
these churches and worship leaders. That takes time, effort, resources.
Yeah. Wow. So, for collecting money, where should an artist be registered to collect money for their music? Or is it better to go to choose the options in DistroKid where they just collect it all for you from YouTube, or should an artist be registered separately? Tell us about where that should all happen.
Yeah, so DistroKid doesn't actually collect all of your royalties. I'm not an expert when it comes to like royalties and publishing,
Yeah.
royalties and all that jazz. I would say your distributor will collect royalties on your masters. So people streaming your music, they're collecting royalties on that. So
Yeah.
that's kind of taken care of. There's a whole publishing side to it as well, though, and you need to be registered with a PRO, performance rights organization, like a BMI, ASCAP. Those two, anybody can go and register.
Yeah.
And also, when you register, you need to register as a songwriter and a publisher if you're self-published. And then you also have to register with an organization called the MLC, or you do that directly, or you have to set up some kind of partnership with a publishing administrator. There's
Mm.
one called Song Trust that's kind of like open to the public that you can register to. Like if you register with Song Trust, you don't have to
Yeah.
register with the MLC.
Yeah.
So
They do it for you.
there's that publishing side, yeah, and then there's the whole like CCLI side. You need to be registered with them if you're doing church music, worship
Yeah.
songs.
It's a lot of work. A lot of things to
Yeah,
keep track of. So if someone had a few
yeah.
$1,000s, let's just say an indie artist, and I don't even know if this is a lot of money or a little money. I mean, in this world, but let's just say an indie artist has a few $1,000s to put behind. So they've got their masters from the producer, and then they've got an extra few $1,000s to put behind promoting the release of the music. Where should they put that money? Is it like Google ad, like Facebook ads? Is it TikTok ads? Can you pay for ads on Spotify? I don't even know.
You can advertise on Spotify only to free users,
Hmm.
so you can decide if that's worth it or not.
Yeah.
I would say if you have a few $1,000s to promote, there's a couple of things. I think it all, I always go back to like, what are your goals?
Hmm.
Like and it kind of depends on like, what are your goals as a church too, if you're releasing as a church, because sometimes, you just to continue to fund your, music ministry, like the external side of things, maybe you need to show some numbers to your pastor or your leadership team to go, okay, people are engaging with our content outside of our church.
Yeah.
And so if that's really important to be able to show to your church, then I would say you should focus on the streaming numbers,
Hmm.
and streaming numbers. It's not just on the DSPs like Spotify, it's also YouTube. Like YouTube
Hmm.
views count as streams. So a lot of churches, that's important to them. So I would say working with somebody like Christian Music Marketing to help with your playlist pitching, streaming marketing. I think that's a good investment. The other thing is digital ads. I would say really where you're going to see the biggest bang for your buck. At least like when we're setting up ads, we get the biggest bang for our buck on YouTube. So if you have a performance video or a lyric video, those two would be like more of the recommended videos to run ads on. we're typically seeing anywhere from like 1 to 3 cents per view, and
Okay.
you can't get that really like anywhere else,
Yeah.
whether it's like Spotify ads or
Yeah.
Instagram ads. We've just not been able to replicate that any other platform. So YouTube ads, it can really go a long way. You can spend $50 and see some good results on there. If you have, a few $100s to thousands of dollars on just like ad spend, I would focus on Instagram, especially Instagram stories is a really good place because some of the platforms that you advertise on, like Facebook, there can tend to be some like bots that will basically like get you view like clicks and impressions that you're paying for, but then they're not actual people that are seeing it.
Hmm.
Whereas Instagram stories, bots can't really swipe up on your Instagram story ad. So it kind of protects you from that and keeps you
Hmm.
in front of like real people.
Yeah.
And ups are pretty easy for people to do, for the call to action to be. So that's another good platform. We're also currently like testing out TikTok ads, and TikTok ads, I think, are great for if you're like new to TikTok, you're creating consistent content, and you're wanting to like get more people to view. It's awareness.
Yeah.
To view your
Yeah.
content, to get more followers on TikTok. I think that's helpful. But yeah, it really depends on your goals. You want to match whatever you're investing into with your goals. So
Yeah.
uh, I would also just to set like realistic expectations, because I think that's also sometimes hard when you're
Yeah.
first starting out. You have all these expectations. We actually like just had a new inquiry, and we did like a discovery call somebody on our team, and the person that reached out has no music out,
Hmm.
and they're like just kind of like starting out writing songs that they're putting out, and they're asking about radio and playlisting, and we basically have to tell them like those are not realistic expectations for where you're at right now,
Yeah.
and we don't even know if we could take on the pitching of your song until we hear the quality of your
Yeah.
song.
Right. Wow, that is interesting. Yeah, because that would be if someone didn't have expectations or realistic expectations, it could be pretty disheartening to them as well when they're like, "Oh man, I
Yeah.
only got 100
Oh yeah.
streams," and it was probably my
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
Uh, that's
Yeah.
hard, man. So, in all that stuff you just mentioned, that's what Christian music marketing does, right? Like you can help
Yeah.
artists do that.
Yeah. Yeah, we do all of that. And yeah, again, like really our goal is to help artists and churches with long-term
Yeah,
longevity and just long-term awareness. And so we try to really encourage all the strategy towards that. But we do know like there's short-term things that you have to also invest into to be able to do it long term, to be able to show the team like here's what we're seeing with this release that we just put out a month
yeah,
ago, and then that gives you a little bit more leverage to go, okay, can we invest a little bit more into marketing for the next single.
yeah,
So we do think it's like short term and long term kind of go hand in hand. I mean, if you're talking about some of the bigger names in worship music, when they're releasing music, they're not spending hundreds of dollars on ads or thousands of dollars on ads. They're spending like tens, hundreds of thousands, So
wow, yeah,
when you have expectations to see your songs do the same as those, artists and
yeah,
churches, but you're spending hundreds of dollars,
yeah,
it's just not realistic.
yeah. It's apples to oranges. So, Christian music marketing. Tell us now what Lula Records does. What is it that Lula
Yeah.
Records does differently than maybe another independent label?
So yeah, Lula Street Records, we really focus on partnering with artists that want to stay independent. So a big thing with staying independent is that you keep your ownership, and so that another word for that is IP, intellectual property. Like
Yeah,
the songs that you write, that's your intellectual property, right? And that's really the most valuable thing that you have. So traditionally, labels would take ownership of that in exchange for investing into you as an artist, whether that's through production and marketing, radio,
Hmm.
touring. So we really give back the ownership to the artist and the creative control, because that's another thing you're giving up when you sign it to like a traditional model. So this is for independent artists that are looking to stay independent. They want to keep creative control and ownership of the music. We're
Yeah.
providing the support with distribution, which includes pitching and also publishing administration and
Yeah.
accounting, because like you mentioned, that's just a lot of work in itself. Like just admitting your catalog. I mean, that
Yeah.
could be a full-time job.
Yeah.
And we actually partner with my former employer, Integrity Music, and their team handles a lot of the back end stuff for accounting. And they have a big team that handles just publishing admin, accounting, royalty payouts,
Yeah.
licensing songs.
Yeah. They're
So
good.
we're providing, yeah, they're an awesome team, and basically we're providing a large label support, even as a small label, because of
Yeah.
our partnership,
Yeah.
to artists that are doing, like, we really are looking for artists that are willing to like work hard and do
Yeah.
their part in getting the music out there and marketing it,
Yeah.
and not just relying on, well, if I just work with Lula Street, then all
Yeah.
my problems are solved, because it doesn't work that way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we want a mutual partnership where
Yeah.
we're both working hard to make things a success and like create awareness.
So if you guys don't have ownership, how are you guys making that work? Because there's no way you're doing that for free, right? Does the artist just pay like maybe a monthly fee or?
I mean, I wish I could do it for free, but yeah,
Yeah. Right.
that's not how our world works.
Yeah.
We basically do a royalty share, so,
Okay.
or revenue share.
Yeah.
So basically, if your music does well, then obviously
Yeah.
everybody wins. So it's a revenue share model. If your music doesn't do well, then we all aren't doing well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that really helps the artists feel like it is a genuine partnership, and we're
Yeah.
all working together with the same goal.
Yeah, I really do like that because teamwork makes the dream work, and
Yeah,
it would make an artist feel good. Like, okay, they're motivated to help my music grow because the more it grows, we all win, and that's the
yeah,
best situation. So that's awesome. Wisdom, you have like dumped a ton of wisdom here on on introducing music out into the marketplace. What are like some next steps for someone? Can they reach out to Christian Music Marketing, or is it through Lula, or how would they get in touch
yeah.
with you?
So if you're looking for marketing help, you're looking for a marketing team that knows what they're doing and that works with transparency and integrity, because there's a lot of marketing
Yeah.
services out there and websites out there that will promise you a lot of things, and when you actually dig deeper into it, they're using bots and things that you'll
Yeah.
see inflated numbers there, but your impact is actually not growing because it's not real people. So
Yeah.
we focus on like real people impact, because
Mhm.
like we want your music and your
Yeah.
message to go out and impact real lives. So if you're interested in that, yeah, you can head over to christianmusicmarketing.com and reach out to us that way. And then if you're looking for basically like a distribution and admin partner, that's what
Mhm.
Lula Street Records is for. So you can head over to lulastreetrecords.com. That's LULA. Or another website we have is called pathmusic.co, Path Music Co. So
Yeah.
it's basically like a division of Lula. And it's essentially the same thing. So yeah, you can reach out to us on any of those platforms.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to just share all this information, and I hope that people come to you and get help with releasing their music.
Yeah,
I
thanks
really
for the
appreciate it.
invite. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really passionate about this topic because I think it's really important for us to
Yeah.
be good stewards of the music we're putting out. And if we
Yeah.
just do it haphazardly, I don't think we're being good stewards of what God's entrusted us with. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a really important thing to talk about. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to do that.
That's awesome, man. Hang on here for 1 minute at the end. I have one question for you, but thank you so much for joining us, Wisdom. We'll see you soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.